I'm the Executive Director of Media at the Public Foundation. I have the honor of introducing the team responsible for the Make Room campaign, which is addressing the rental affordability crisis in the United States. And what they've done is really exciting. I'm not going to spoil it by talking about that. I'll give them the opportunity to talk about it. Jake Kahana, Creative Director of Matter Unlimited, Terry Ludwig, President and CEO of Enterprise Community Partners, and Dr. Megan Sandel, Associate Professor of Pediatrics, Boston University School of Medicine, and Enterprise Community Partners Board Member. If you could please come on out.
Great, thank you so much for having us. It's really exciting to be here to launch Make Room, a campaign to help end the rental housing crisis. The campaign launches actually today. We've been working really hard to launch it on May 1st, so lucky us for timing and lucky you, we've got a lot of great content to show you. I'm Jake Kahana, I'm the Creative Director at Matter Unlimited. For those of you who don't know Matter, we're a creative agency focused exclusively on social impact. We partner with brands to use the power of advertising to amplify good. And we've been fortunate enough to be working with Enterprise for a number of years on the Make Room campaign. Enterprise Community Partners is an incredible national housing organization that provides funding for affordable housing. They're a leader and an influencer and an innovator in the space, driving a lot of American housing policies. And they work to solve the rental housing crisis. So I keep talking rental housing crisis, rental housing crisis. What is the rental housing crisis? So in its most basic terms, rent keeps going up year after year after year. The cost of living goes up and wages still remain the same. So you've got 11 million families in America. It's an American problem. 11 million families who pay over half of their income to rent. So when half of your income goes to rent, that forces these families to make really toxic trade-offs that are devastating when it comes to education and childcare and medication. And they're really one unexpected expense away from homelessness. So you think about a hospital bill or a car accident or a rise in rent, and they're on the brink of becoming homeless. So the problem that we faced in dealing with this campaign is that it's a really complex issue, right? You don't know what I make, you don't know how much I pay in rent, I don't know your living situation. These are very sensitive and personal issues that people don't talk about. So part of our goal in the campaign is to take this issue out from behind closed doors, to raise awareness and understand what these families are actually going through. So knowing that it's a complex issue, our campaign is a multifaceted campaign, a long-term campaign. Again, it launches today. We've got a range of things from incredible partnership opportunities to journalism fellowships. We have an amazing website. That's the hub of the crisis, everything rental housing crisis. So what's going on right now, ways to get involved, what are the causes of the crisis, and what are the paths towards solution. And part of this unhiding, part of this opening the door on the issue and getting into these families' homes to understand what they're going through, we've decided to use music. Music is obviously a great tool for getting people involved, for raising awareness, for bringing communities together. And so part of the campaign that we're really proud to show you a piece of today is something we're calling Concerts for the First. So these families, we've got families all across the country who are hosting musical artists inside their homes to play concerts. During this process, we're getting to know the family, we're telling their story, and it brings a brand new audience and a larger scale to this issue. You've got musicians that have a large social following and it's a great way to bring the general public to this issue and raise awareness. So our kickoff concert, we shot recently in Los Angeles. The Duarte family was an incredible host for us in just opening their doors, opening their lives to us, and really being open about telling their very personal story. It's a very dramatic story, but sadly not so uncommon. This happens to a lot of families. They've been on the move for the last several years, moving house to house. The mother, Lisette, works full-time. Henry, the father, lost his job, and over the last several years, they've been moving from house to house. You know, they move into one house, and it's got mold in the basement, and the kids get sick, and they have to move again, and the rent rises in this apartment, and they have to move. So they were in a 3-bedroom house, and now they're in a 2-bedroom apartment. It's a very complex story, and we're fortunate enough that they opened their home and their lives to us telling their story and bringing some light to the crisis. They hosted the first concert with Carly Rae Jepsen. So Carly Rae Jepsen is the vocal talents behind Call Me Maybe and a number of other hits. And yeah, without further ado, she brings a lot of clout and attention to the issue. So on behalf of Carly and the Duarte family, Enterprise Community Partners, and Matter, I'd love to show you the launch film, which kicks off today. There's no audio.
The Duartes are your average American family. Lisette works full-time while Henry takes care of their 2 kids, Enrique and Elise. And just like 11 million other American families, they spend over half their income just to pay rent on the first.
The majority of my income goes to rent, like more than half.
The rental housing crisis affects 1 in 10 families in America, but their daily struggle is hidden. Introducing Make Room Concerts for the First. Real families sharing their stories and hosting an artist in their home.
Hi, guys.
Part of our campaign to end the rental housing crisis.
Thank you guys so much for having us here today.
A lot of families are struggling to make ends meet. I hope that my story helps somebody else.
Watch the latest concert and learn more at makeroomusa.org.
So we're really excited to launch that today. Over the course of the next year, we'll be creating 9 different concerts with 9 families, 9 artists, 9 cities across the country. And while we're in conversation with these artists and families, you know, we'd love your help. I know this is a very well-connected room, that if you know musical artists, music industry people, talent agents, let's have a conversation after this, because we definitely want to bring as much attention to this issue as we can. At this time, I'm happy to be joined by Terry Ludwig, the President and CEO of Enterprise Community Partners, and Dr. Megan Sandel, who is the Associate Professor of Pediatrics at Boston University School of Medicine, and she's the first doctor to sit on the board of Enterprise. So thank you guys for joining me. Really exciting to be launching Make Room here at the UN. It's been a lot of work to finally be here. Terry, can you explain how this all started? You know, why is Enterprise wanting to create a campaign now? How did this get started?
Sure. Thanks, Jake, and thanks everyone for all your support in advance. And at Enterprise, one of our primary goals is to end housing insecurity in this country. So if you reflect back on the conversation earlier today and you saw the global goal, end poverty, no poverty, what you saw was a family with a roof over their head. And sometimes we forget just how essential housing is to that. A home is an essential part, as we know, to ending poverty. So Enterprise is taking on this notion to say, you know, how do we really end housing insecurity in this country? It's totally possible. But what's stopping us? And for us, housing insecurity, it means people who are homeless are paying more than 50% of their income towards their rent or their mortgage. And we simply know that that is not sustainable. And as enterprise, as the CEO, I've been really confronted with this issue because we're really good at doing things like public-private partnerships, and we've brought $17 billion into distressed communities. And so we operate at a very large scale, yet we're not achieving our goals. And one of the primary reasons we're not achieving our goals is because we don't have this issue on the national agenda. So that's what this campaign is about, and that's what I see as the possibility. How do we get people to care about this issue, about those families, about the Duarte family that you see are struggling behind closed door to pay their rent? And frankly, I find that we talk a lot more to each other in our own industry rather than reaching out and finding ways to connect. And we haven't had a concerted, effective strategy until now to connect emotionally and intellectually to others. So the renters we serve don't have a voice. So this isn't about enterprise. You didn't see our name. This is about making room in our hearts, in our minds, on the agenda for this critical issue. So we're delighted to have this opportunity.
Great. And so it's a very complex. Yeah, great. Thanks. So it's obviously a very complex, multifaceted issue with a lot of causes. I tried my best to simplify it. How would you explain it? How would you define this problem?
Actually, Jake, I think you did the exact right thing. I think if we have this image in our mind of 11 million families, and that means folks that are, like if you say 1 in 4 families, low-income families, 1 in 4 of folks who rent are struggling with this issue. That's a lot of people, and we also know that this is solvable. I think the biggest thing that we see, imagine yourself, I'm a mom, dads, moms, grandparents, sisters, brothers, doesn't really matter. Imagine sitting at your table and thinking about, am I gonna pay my rent? And if I don't, what might happen? I might get evicted. Or am I going to put food on the table? Or I'm going to pay, medicine, my medicine bill. Those are the choices that real people, our neighbors, our families are struggling with. So this is really the issue that we're facing as a country, an affluent country.
Great. And Megan, obviously the issue exhibits itself in a lot of different ways. What have you noticed as a pediatrician? What's your approach as a doctor?
Yeah, it's interesting. I first started connecting housing and health as a pediatric intern in Boston 20 years ago. And I admitted a child to the ICU, and she was really struggling to breathe with an asthma attack. We were really scared she wasn't going to make it. And I'm talking with the family, and it became clear why she was there. The family had found a mouse in her bed, and they had tried to get the landlord to make a change. And when the landlord didn't, they got a cat to get rid of the mice. And she was severely allergic to the cat. And so to me, it was that eureka moment. No amount of medicine I was going to give that child was going to make it okay to send her home. The prescription I wanted to write was for a healthy home. And so I think that in many ways, most people can connect the issues between homelessness and substandard housing and how that plays out in terms of bad health. But it's harder sometimes, that hidden homelessness, you're living on the brink is sometimes harder to see. But I'll say that as a doctor, I see this playing out on the bodies of my patients every day. I have families that come to see me with failure to thrive. They're having trouble growing. And the problem is not food. The problem is housing. It's a kid who has now, after his family lost their apartment because they couldn't keep up with rent, is now sleeping in a living room. And we know that stability is really key for kids. I think in a lot of ways, for every family facing homelessness, there's so many other families that are living on the brink. And so it's because of that I start thinking about a stable, decent, affordable home as acting like a prescription to keeping kids healthy now and in the future.
Great. So Terry, we've heard a lot of great causes, even just today. There are tons of great causes. So why should Americans care about this issue now? What's going on?
Well, I think if you look at the trajectory, the data, this is not a data conversation, but based in that, this is worsening. So I think it's a really important issue, and I think many of these issues are related. And so what we're trying to do is really peel it back and say, what's foundational here? What's a basic need? A home is a basic need. And I would say, why should we care about this? I think Dr. Sandel just pointed it out well. I think if my family, my mom, my grandparents, they're all teachers. And I'm very convinced if my mother was sitting here right now and teachers were sitting here, they would say, there is no chance that our children will get educated if they have housing instability. The data shows it. It shows developmental outcomes that are lagging, educational outcomes that are lagging. And so if we care about poverty and we care about low-income families, we can't look at this in isolation. We have to think about what is foundational here. So the health, education, well-being, if you care for that, and that teacher does not have a chance if we don't start at this foundational level. So I think that's, for me, the easiest way to look at this. And certainly, I mean, my background's from the private sector, and I could talk a lot about the economic imperative as well, because I do think that, you know, we believe in the potential of all of our citizens. And so if we're thinking about the human or the economic potential, we have to be thinking about, you know, the spending patterns of these folks even. I mean, just take it from an economic standpoint. Consumer spending is, what, 2/3 of our economy? There's nothing left after paying rent. You know, we're just not looking at the full economic potential of these folks, especially long term.
Great. And Megan, there are a lot of assumptions that people make about, you know, families on the brink, families within the rental housing crisis. So what assumptions would you want to change that people have coming into this?
Yeah, I think a lot of people assume it's an urban problem, right? High-cost cities are driving a lot of it. But this is really a national issue. We know states like Alabama, Montana, South Carolina, 1 out of 4 renters in those markets are paying over 50% of their take-home income. And I just want to translate that. I'm a pediatrician. Those are 9 million children across the country that are living in those families. And so when we think about it in terms of you're moving frequently, you're not able to necessarily get to school, that's millions of lost school days and teacher hours that are lost due to housing insecurity. And that just doesn't only affect the kid in that family, that affects the other kids in that classroom. And so when we start thinking about it, I believe that we can end this. I took the day from my hospital duties to come down here because you all in this room, I think, are going to help us be able to end this crisis and be able to make my patients healthier through ending this crisis. Thank you very much.
Great. So it looks like we're just about out of time. I just want to, you know, say that I'm really excited to be kicking this off today. It's going to be an amazing campaign, and I'm excited to grow the reach in the months and years to come. And I'd love for you guys to continue the conversation. Check us out, makeroomUSA.org. You can email us, become a partner, amplify the message, and help us. Email us at partners@makeroomUSA.org, and we can help end this rental housing crisis once and for all.
We need your help and appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.